Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings 2022 122nd US Open player by player breakdown. Everyone's favorite show of major season. A lot of work goes into this. Probably. At least that's what people tell me. But that's why we don't do it every week. We break it out for major season. I want you to smash the like button for the episode. Give me your favorite $6,000 guy this week on DraftKings, because it's a real crapshoot from the bottom. It's going to stick a lot of people with stopping at 7,000 and building their lineups that way. If you can find a gem or two down in the sixes, I think you're going to be looking pretty good this week. At least that's my opinion. Sub to Mayo Media Network and the giveaways. Hit the newsletter because I'm offering 10 ballots apiece in the draw for one $200 cash giveaway. Two $100 cash giveaways. Jeff Feinberg's giving away a Justin Herbert rookie card to one lucky winner out there too. And if you are in any of the if you're in the United States or Canada, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, Twitter handle, all that fun stuff to get those ballots. But if you live in Ireland, Great Britain, Australia, Germany, Singapore, the Emirates, Portugal, Sweden, Brazil, Colombia, all places where the Pat Mayo Experience is trending right now, thanks to all of you. If you can leave a rating and review and you're one of those countries, you're going to skyrocket us to number one. So please, everyone out there, and you'll be in line to get into the 10 ballots in the draw for the giveaways for the stuff too. I do have one thing in the newsletter this evening, so go sub to that down in the description right now. That gets you 100 ballots in the giveaway. You want to get the 100 ballots? You should probably check out the newsletter. And any retweet or share gets you one. You can do it unlimited times as well for anything you see come across on social media. The Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League is 80% full as of right now. This is going to be full by the time we get to the live chat on Wednesday, noon Eastern time, on Mayo Media Network with myself and Tambo. I think it'll be full by the time we get there, so go get your spot right now. 3 max entry, $15 to play, no rake, thus making it the best tournament on DraftKings. Rick Gehman, I lied to the viewers. I said you were going to be at the course while we were doing this, although it makes sense that you'd rather be in your studio with your good connection before you go, so I appreciate you making the time to do this before you hop on a red eye and get no sleep for 4 days.
Yes, that is the exact plan. Yeah, media center Wi-Fi, never great. So I figured, hey, get all my stuff done. Then I'll be able to really enjoy the action from the country club when I get there. I'll still be working, but it'll feel more like pleasure than work, Pat.
Well, let's talk about the weather before we do anything, because now, it's that time of major week where it's like, oh my God, the weather. Can you imagine? Or I don't think the weather means anything. I don't think we should be making any bold predictions on a Tuesday evening. Tambo and I will break that down more in depth on Wednesday, and I'll have a full release in the newsletter on Wednesday night. But it does appear like the best of it is going to be as early as possible on Thursday. That's what it looks like right now. Not saying it stays that way, but how much of an influence do you think that will have on you when you're constructing your DraftKings lineups?
So I generally let it impact me a lot less than others, because I think, as we've seen over the past couple of months and past couple of years, we are very bad at getting this right. Even when sometimes we get the draw right, it's for the wrong reasons. So I tend to take it into account less. However, I would agree with you. If you made me pick a side, that early Thursday draw looks a little bit better, with the caveat of it's summertime in New England. This can change very, very rapidly over the course of the next day or so.
It was strange because at the Players, the rain wiped out what we would have considered to be the good time, thus making the good time the bad time to be on the course. So it was the opposite split, and then people got kind of gun shy, or at least we thought they were going to get gun shy at the PGA Championship, when there was a pretty clear, distinct wave that you wanted to be a part of, and even more people stacked that wave, and it did work out. Justin Thomas did come from the other side, but I think like 9 of the next 12 guys on the leaderboard were from, I think it was the PM AM wave. I can't even remember which one it was now, but it did work out. The one that everyone thought was going to be the good wave did turn out to be the good wave. The difference with this one is you don't get like a double good day. It's just early on Thursday, it looks like it's going to be less windy, and then the rest of the week, it's looking kind of brutal out there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's why I think what it could be maybe a half a shot in favor of that wave, which on average adds up. I don't want to say that it's nothing, but yeah, there's rain in the forecast potentially on Friday. Every time I check, the percentages change on that, and we know if you add a little bit of water to a USGA setup, they're going to be able to keep the greens firm and fast, but that rough feels like it gets a lot thicker and gets a lot nastier. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fairly sizable challenge, no matter how the forecast ends up panning out.
And if you really do want to, if you don't want to go full DraftKings lineup stacks with the AM PM wave, I would recommend that if you're playing Showdown, probably just use early guys on Thursday. Maybe if you look at the first round leader market, Seb Straka, you might want to go with the guys who are earliest out on the course. They might get the best of it. Or we can talk to you about 24 hours from now and everything is flipped. That's why we don't want to make too big of a deal of it. But I did want to bring it to people's attention before we started to dig into the players. All the stats that I'm using and ownership projections we'll speak of come from fantasynational.com. Go to fantasynational.com/Mayo to get yourself 20% off. The lineup generator, all the stats, the simulator, the ownership projections, and creating your own model made so easy, even a moron like me can use it. So you'll have no problem with it. fantasynational.com/Mayo. Let's talk. Number one guy on the board in terms of the DraftKings pricing, it's Scottie Scheffler. He's $11,300. Rick, I think I am going to bet Scottie. You know what? I am going to bet Scottie Scheffler this week, but it doesn't seem like anyone has a super lot of interest in it. I know people have futures from 40 and 45 from way back. I don't. I'm just trying to look at it from this week only. The 14-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook right now is, it's a good number. I've seen as high as 16, but it just doesn't feel like people are betting him, and that we'll probably get like an 18, maybe. Fingers crossed, maybe I'll find a boost that we can get that to 20 by the time. He's also in the PM AM wave, so maybe if I just let the morning ride itself out, maybe it'll just naturally go to 22 day of, and I can just bet it then. But I like Scottie Scheffler a lot this week. I could see myself, unless I get too scared by that weather draw, locking him in here at the top.
Yeah, there are a couple guys who could go out early who could get you a better number on Scottie Scheffler before he even hits the tee shot on Thursday. And I actually probably prefer betting him outright than taking him in a DFS and a DraftKings format. We have a couple situations here where we have to split hairs at the top. And of course, with the pricing coming out a little bit earlier, it creates some dynamics that we don't normally have on a given week. Scottie's been unbelievable. I am a hair worried that he's lost strokes putting at just one of them in 3 of his last 4 when he was riding that hot flat stick for basically the first half of the calendar year. So I'm a little bit worried that he loses a stroke or two with the putter, and that's kind of the demise. But he is a golfer who, no matter where he's at, Pat, I look at him and like, yeah, he's going to make par from here. Like it doesn't matter. Like that's the kind of the skill set that Scottie Scheffler has. And at a US Open, it's a very good one to have.
It's funny because you even see him last week in Canada and the announcers were kind of trashing him. And I guess, when you're the number one player in the world, you're held to such a different standard. It just doesn't feel like he's the number one player in the world, right?
It's never felt like he's the number one player in the world because he's, even after he captured the number one ranking, he kind of gave this ho-hum presser like, oh, I just like to play golf and I'm going to go out there. He's not a step on your throat kind of number one golfer like we've seen from Jon Rahm, and obviously Tiger Woods set the gold standard for that for so many years. So no, it doesn't feel like it. And he doesn't have an elite skill set like a Rory McIlroy, or he doesn't have the magic beads like Jordan Spieth. It just feels different than a lot of the other number ones that we've had in, I don't know, the last decade or so.
You kind of hit on it that it does feel like he's going to make par from anywhere, and that's the kind of player that I want this week. And looking back at his tee to green outside of the PGA Championship when he was stuck in the crappy wave and he missed the cut, his only missed cut of the season, gained 8.7 strokes tee to green in Toronto last weekend, lost a half stroke putting at Charles Schwab, became second, gained 12.4, total 11.9 tee to green. Even at the Byron Nelson where he came 15th, 8.7 tee to green. That hasn't gone anywhere. The approach has been immaculate. He's lost strokes around the green just once all season long. The driver, he's long. He's not going to be the most accurate, but he's one of the few that can actually dig himself out of that deep rough and still get loft on the ball. You're right. It comes down to his putter, and I'm willing to take the bet that he can figure that out this week because it feels like he is the forgotten man of the top 4 guys.
Yeah, and you probably should be, willing to think it's going to come around. He's had such a great year. He's inside the top 40 in strokes gained putting, even with the recent, quote, struggles, which really isn't all that bad. I think Scottie's got the rare combination. We don't have a lot of players on this tour that have a high floor and a high ceiling. You mentioned it where, it's only been the one miscut at the PGA Championship, and it took a 3-shot wave disadvantage to cause that, that was at the Players Championship. The PGA Championship, he was on the wrong side of the draw. I think it was a 2-shot advantage. And he also has the 4 wins. So he's got this very, very rare high floor, high ceiling combination that is super, super scary, especially on harder golf courses.
I'm seeing him projected around 14% right now, as per Fantasy National. I think he comes in below that because I think it's just very difficult to construct lineups around him at 11,300 when you can just very easily. Also pointing out the PGA Championship, he was cusp pick, so he was very undercursed that week, as along with being on the bad side of the wave. Justin Thomas is $10,900 coming off a bad final 2 holes in Canada, but 70 pretty good ones. The last person to win a major championship. He's just the cost break from even the $400 could be a lot on this. So I like JT. He is my least favorite of the top 4 guys in pricing, though. I just feel like the driving distance is there. The accuracy really is not. And when it comes down to it, I just don't know if he has the same sort of power versus Rory, Rahm, and Scheffler to dig himself out of some of these really thick lies. Now, he's very capable of getting it back onto the fairway, getting it up and down from 130 yards. I know he can do that. But it feels like that degree of difficulty is a lot higher than the other guys who might actually be able to get it on the green from some of these lies.
So I think you mentioned the savings there, the $400 from Scottie Scheffler, Justin Thomas. And I do think that's important because we kind of have to go, this is like when you walk up to the green and look back at the hole and it looks completely different from how you played it. You have to remember that when we get down to the $6,000 range, it's fairly ugly. And when you save $400, or Pat, I'm kind of in the same boat as you where I'm probably going to save more than that and maybe get $500 from Scottie Scheffler down to Jon Rahm or even more down to Rory McIlroy. That goes a long way filling out the rest of your lineup. So it's not only just passing up on a guy that I think he's great and I think he's well deserving of the price and everything that we've seen, but the few extra $100 that I will be able to bank with some of these other guys has me more excited about the way I can build a lineup as opposed to just plugging in one individual golfer.
Jon Rahm, I like a lot. I really equate him to Scheffler and as the top 2 guys that I really prefer this week. I might use some of Jon Rahm, but I might just go overweight on Scottie Scheffler. But the weather thing, again, is scaring me a little bit. Scheffler and Justin Thomas both appear in what would be classified as the bad wave, where Jon Rahm gets the good wave. He gets to go out early on Thursday. And now after his press conference on Tuesday, everyone in love with Jon Rahm. I had a professor in college who was from Little Germany, as he called it, Austria. Very eloquent man. And until I saw, most of the time just in my head, he was the most eloquent second language English speaking person I have ever seen. I don't understand how Jon Rahm is so eloquent in his second language versus most of these goobers on the PGA Tour. It's outrageous.
And that's also a large improvement. Remember when he was like a freshman at Arizona State, it was nowhere near this. So just in, I don't know what it's been, 10 years, 11 years since Rahm's left Arizona State, something like that. He's been phenomenal. Now I'm big in on Jon Rahm here. So zoom out a little bit, not just a weekly game that we're playing, but at the start of 2022, switches to Callaway, loses the ability around the green, trying to figure out his new wedges, didn't putt particularly well either. He's fixed that. He's gained strokes around the green in 3 of 5. He's a positive golfer in that time frame. He's gained on the putting surfaces in 4 of 5. He hasn't lost the ball striking ability. I'm big time in on Jon Rahm making a run to defend his US Open title.
I'm with you. He lost strokes off the tee at Memorial, minus 1.4, the first time he dropped strokes to the field with the driver since the 2019 Tour Championship, which is just mind-boggling to think about. And yeah, now that he's cleaned up the short game, he looks like he's in a very good position to go defend his US Open Championship this week. I have nothing bad to say about Jon Rahm. It just boils down to how do I want to construct my teams at the top. I think he's going to be more popular than Scheffler. I have Scheffler slightly ahead of him in my numbers, but not by much. So I think think if I can get the ownership break on Scheffler, and I know that will make my lineups a little bit more unique because I'll have to use less money down at the bottom and I have to go dip into that range, you can still build a little bit more balanced with Jon Rahm. But I think that Scheffler and Rahm are the number 1 and 2 plays from this area. So I'm completely on board with you. I'm not going to talk anyone out of Jon Rahm. I just have to wait and see if I can get there with him. Maybe I'll split up my shares, go 50-50 and roll it out that way because, sir, I believe I'm going to have 0% Rory McIlroy this week. Terrifying to do, but Tambo will have a good grasp of this, of what he's going to be in high stakes tournaments, but I think he's going to push 30% here.
So do I. I think he sucks up a ton of ownership here. He has literally everything going for him. One, he's one of the most popular golfers on the planet. He's one of the best golfers on the planet. He comes off a win that everyone saw, and now he goes to a golf course where, Rory's been awesome around the greens. Like, the one deficiency that he's had in the last couple of years that has kind of troubled him at some of these major championships, not really an issue that much anymore. And oh, by the way, because the pricing comes out early, that very public win from last week doesn't even get all that factored in. So it's a perfect storm of all the ownership going to Rory McIlroy. If there is one guy, as scary as it sounds, Pat, to fade at the top, it's probably him, because I mean, what does he have to, if he finishes T12 and you just play 0% of Rory McIlroy, you have made out like a bandit.
That's the whole point behind it. And I have a Rory double from last week and this week. So even if Rory wins, I'm still feeling pretty good about it. Would I be singing a different tune if I didn't have that in my back pocket? Maybe. But I just think game theory wise, there's not a huge amount separating Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory, at least in my mind. And if one guy is going to be double the ownership of the other two, or maybe triple Scheffler's and 40% of whatever Jon Rahm's is, I'd just rather use the other two guys if we're splitting hairs.
Yeah, Rory McIlroy maybe wins this golf tournament, I don't know, 7% of the time. That might be generous. Maybe 8%, something like that. And it's Scottie Scheffler wins it more than 4%, wins it more than 3% or whatever. So when you start looking at it like that, it does not necessarily make sense from a game theory standpoint to play a 30% owned Rory McIlroy. It just doesn't add up.
Will tell you that it doesn't feel very good.
It's good. It's going to be devastating to Sweat, because he's probably going to be awesome. He's probably going to be in the mix. He has been all year long. He has talked a lot about internal motivation, Pat, and how he kind of has to create stuff. And he's got all the motivation in the world right now. It will be a devastatingly scary fade of Rory McIlroy.
But hey, as I always like to point out, I lose money most weeks anyway. I might as well go down giving myself a chance at the top, because let's say I use Rory and he wins. Well, am I going to get my other 5 guys right? Who knows? Probably not. So Rory fade for me this week. If you want to play against me and my Rory fading ways, play in the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. Link is down in the description right now. And if you want to get your hands on some of that cold, hard cash, sub to the newsletter, and you can find the easiest ways to do so, including a way to stuff the ballot box with 100 ballots inside the draw. Very few people are going to do it, so you give yourself a big edge in that circumstance. Hit the newsletter. It's down in the description. Completely free to join. Cameron Smith is up next. Is anyone playing Cameron Smith? Because I ain't.
No, and I actually like Cam Smith more than most people do here in this situation, but it's just too expensive for kind of the big 4 at the top. I think there's very clearly a big 4, and Cam Smith is not one of them. I'm willing to forgive his opening round last week where he was 6 over and didn't make a birdie for like the first time in his life, but he had over the final 3 days the 8th best score of anybody at the RBC Canadian, and he's a great short game player. I worry that he sprays it, but you just add it all up, Pat. Unfortunately, the guys that are just a hair more expensive are seemingly way better, and the guys that are less expensive are just as good. It is not a great combination when you start looking at the landscape of the pricing.
I think that you have one option, or you have 4 options up here, and you probably have to choose one of them or 2 of them if you want to get real crazy. And Cam Smith is the first one that's probably going to come in at sub 6% ownership in the Giant Millionaire Maker on DraftKings, even lower in high stakes contests. So if you have a feeling about Cam Smith, I would say use him. I have a very negative feeling against him. Even look at his top 3 finishes this year: Kapalua, the Players Championship, and the Masters. We're talking about 3 courses that either have gigantic fairways or very limited rough. Like if he's behind a tree on pine straw, Cam Smith has the magic to get it out of there. When he has to hack it from 225 away, he doesn't have the same power as these other guys to get it back out. Maybe the short game saves him, but he'll have to chip and putt like his life depends on it in order to compete this week. Basically what we saw through 2 rounds at Memorial, what he was doing when he was chipping in 3 times around. Well, what happened when he stopped chipping in every time? He just plummeted down the leaderboard. I could see that happening again here. I actually thought Southern Hills was a much better setup for him due to its lack of rough in a lot of places, especially greenside. And let me get your stance on this. When the rough is this thick, presumably, does that help out the better short game players, or does it kind of mitigate the circumstances where the best guys can't be as good, thus bringing them closer to the worst guys around the green?
I don't think, so I don't believe that it hurts the bad guys. I think it helps I don't think it hurts the good guys. I think it helps the bad guys. So I think Cam Smith is going to be, whether it's all shaved down at Southern Hills or he gets this real thick, nasty stuff around the country club, I think he's going to be just fine. But the guys that struggle around the green generally struggle from those tight lie situations where it's just, you have to be so exact. So the thicker stuff, Viktor, we'll get to Viktor in a second. It's a perfect example. He plays well at Bay Hill, that thick rough around the greens. He struggles a little bit. He actually, statistically was pretty good at Southern Hills where everything's shaved down, but it's a completely different ball game. And the guys that are not as proficient around the greens like a little bit of give. They like a little bit of fluff. They like the ability to kind of slip their club under the ball a little bit.
Well, I think that the decision comes down to one of these next 2 guys of who you want to roster this week if you want to be different at the top, because I feel like that's going to be the best way to get contrarian. If you want to use Rory, you probably pair him up with either Collin Morikawa at $10,000 or Viktor Hovland at $9,700. They're both bad around the green. It's Morikawa especially lately. But every time that Morikawa gains strokes putting, he essentially finishes inside the top 5. He finished inside the top 5 last year at the US Open and lost strokes putting. And I feel like this is a better setup for him than Torrey Pines was. And it's not like he's not striking the ball well. He's not striking the ball elite. And same as Vic, when we really boil down to it, these guys are not at their peak at the moment. If you had to choose between the 2 of them, or maybe it's someone else that you would want to go with. But I'm always team Morikawa. You're always team Hovland. What are your expectations for these 2 guys this week?
Yeah, I think they're kind of similar but different, right? Like I think Morikawa, right? He has to his path to winning is gain a couple of strokes with the putter, and if you think that's going to happen, great. Viktor's is don't play yourself out of it around the greens, and if you think he can do that, that's great. I think realistically, if I remove all my biases, you've got a situation where Collin Morikawa goes to one of the shorter US Open venues that we can get. Right, this is 500 yards shorter than Torrey Pines. It's not Erin Hills. It's not some of these massive setups that you could get. I actually think that some of the creativity that's going to be required this week is going to be more Open Championship than US Open, just compared to other USGA setups. I still think it's going to be narrow fairways, thick rough. It's going to have the fingerprint of the USGA on it. I just think this is probably one of the better setups he could get. So if you made me choose and I removed everything I know and love about these guys, I believe Collin Morikawa is the more likely option to win.
Now, he is cuss one and done for the week. That's never a good sign. I agree with you. I think Morikawa is the superior play. The one thing that I don't think is going to be true about like an Open Championship comparison is how these greens are seemingly protected, that if you try to get it up there and you miss, where do you think Vic is better? From the deep stuff or in the bunker?
The deep stuff. Yeah, it's the bunker stuff has given him issues, both statistically and anecdotally. Having just kind of thick, I just think of Bay Hill a lot, right? Where from the thick rough, he's fine. You start getting into bunkers and false fronts and things like that, it gets a bit hairy. Yeah,
so I think I'm on Team Morikawa here, which means you should probably play Viktor Hovland. If we're both on Team Morikawa, along with Cust, and Viktor just being left by the wayside, both these guys, again, project for under 6% ownership because Xander Schauffele is right there, and he's going to suck up a ton. He's got the good wave. He's never finished worse than 7th at a U.S. Open. He comes in trending in a very good spot right now across the board. Can you talk? You can't just fade everyone who's going to be popular this week. I'm going to fade Rory. Does that mean I can fade Xander? Do I want to use Xander? Is he sort of like Scheffler where you know what his floor is, but he doesn't have that same sort of upside, but for his price point, it's still really good?
Right. I think I would pass on Rory, play Xander. I mean, the U.S. Open finishes are insane what he's done at this event. And yes, he's got that T12 floor, but he's got like the T3 ceiling, right? Like that's the most likely range of outcomes seemingly for Xander Schauffele. There's not a flaw in his game. There's really not a bad thing I can say. I think we just look at it from a roster construction standpoint. I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make is play Rory and Xander. That doesn't work, but playing Xander without Rory, or maybe even vice versa, a lot more appealing.
Jordan Spieth in the good wave is up next, or at least, again, the seemingly good wave of the AM PM. Xander's in that wave. Morikawa's in that wave. Rory and Rahm are all in that wave. Hovland and Smith are not. They're along with Justin Thomas and Scheffler in the PM AM draw right now. I love Spieth this week. I will be using Spieth. I will eat that chalk. It's probably why I'll end up passing on Xander Schauffele. I just like the way, let's just remove his driving. Everything else I like about it. I'm very encouraged that he kind of found his chipping and found his putting at Memorial. That was encouraging to me. But the driving has been really good. And if he's going to do that at a US Open and the winning score is going to be like -4, yeah, give me some Jordan Spieth in that spot.
Yeah, we're aligning a little bit too much here, Pat. This is getting eerie here, but you're right. That we're seeing a version of Jordan Spieth where he's gaining multiple strokes off the tee for each of his last 5 or 6 starts. He's been one of the better ball strikers on tour for the last half a year. He lost he was literally in the midst of his worst, and still is, his worst putting season of his career, but now he's gained in 3 of his last 4, including 5 at the Memorial. You come into a major championship uber confident, one that's not overly long, one that with chocolate drops and bunkers and all these awkward fescue spots around these teeny tiny greens, there's a chance this turns into a chipping contest. Okay, I want Jordan Spieth in my chipping contest, right? I think he covers kind of both paths here, Pat. The total driving path, obviously not as long as the big boys at the top, but playing it that way. Or if we get into a situation where this is one green side, that also helps Jordan Spieth. I just think he has 2 clear paths to victory when a lot of these guys have 0 or 1 path to victory.
How about Dustin Johnson? Because for years, you'd just be like, hey, Dustin Johnson, it's the US Open. Let's use him because he's going to be good. Now, obviously, he's no longer playing on the PGA Tour. He's playing on the LIV Tour, where he was -1 in their first event. Pretty good for old DJ. Not that he's really concerned about money at this point, but no one is using DJ this week. Like, legit nobody. He might be 3% owned. He didn't look bad in the LIV event. Can you leverage yourself with a 3% Dustin Johnson? Would you feel okay doing that? Like, are you going to do it? Because I can't make up my mind.
No, he will not be a part of my player pool. He is still on the PGA Tour, having his worst around the green season basically ever, his worst putting season basically ever. I don't necessarily know how to reconcile the fact that he gained 7 strokes over 54 holes of a LIV golf event where the average OWGR was 300. Like, I don't know how to reconcile that. Is that good? He was clearly the best player in the field. He finished 8th. I don't know. So it's just kind of a really awkward situation for a guy that he's had a couple of good finishes. He made a good run at the match play, but it hasn't been a lot of great golf for Dustin already this year. And I'm not sure this is the place for him to get right.
When we talk about the bad wave, Dustin Johnson is in it, as are 9 of the 10 LIV players in the tournament this week. Now, some people theorize that, hey, if that's going to be the bad wave, stick all these losers over there. Or it's maybe you don't want guys in the gallery who are really drunked up harassing these guys late on a Friday.
I'm always in for a good conspiracy theory or something like that, but I don't think that the gallery cares all that much. I don't think half the people out there are going to even understand what's happening.
I'm with you. I was on Andy's show last night, and we were talking about that because there's just been this like, can Phil hold up to the harassment he's going to get? It's like people will probably be cheering for Phil. They will.
Yeah, it's not golf Twitter. It's people who go to major championships and see Phil Mickelson, and they're probably going to say very nice things to him. I can't imagine these guys are going to be harassed or heckled in any meaningful manner.
Will Zalatoris is up next. He's going to carry some ownership, but not as crazy as Xander or Spieth at this point. He's 31, 9,300 on DraftKings, plays in the AM to kick off his tournament. I mean, at this point, is there a safer play on the board than Zalatoris at a major?
Wow. Yeah. Seemingly not, right? He's kind of taken the crown, at least as the prince of majors, from Brooks, who's, struggled as of late. But yeah, it's so fascinating when you think about who the best players on tour are, or what the elite skill sets are. And the elite skill sets are generally the ball striking skill sets. And that is always going to be a huge edge and a huge advantage at a major championship. The small greens, they have a ton of undulation in them, which sometimes the bad putters like that. It's a little bit easier to read than it's some of the subtle stuff. I'm not saying that Zalatoris is going to go out there and gain 8 strokes with the putter, but he doesn't have to. He just has to be the ball striking version of himself that we are now going on 2 years, Pat, right? Basically the way he got his card was at winged foot. Like, he finishes in the top 10 there, parlays that into a bunch of other top 10s, and earns enough points to earn his tour card. Like, it's because he plays well at major championships. So I have little concern to think that's going to discontinue at any point. And
the nice thing about him, at least over his past 5 starts, is you know what you're getting from Zalatoris. You're either going to get a missed cut or a guy who's in the contention to the very end. 5th at Memorial, missed cut at the Tyrrell Schwab. 2nd at the PGA Championship, missed cut at the Byron Nelson. 6th at the Masters. Like that's what I want. I want you to leave me being like, I can't believe I took this guy on Friday evening, or give me a real sweat all the way till Sunday. That's where I want to be. So I'm in on Zalatoris. Not my favorite play of the $9,000 range. But I'll tell you, Patrick Cantlay is not my favorite play. But again, like some of the other low-owned players that we were talking about, Cantlay's not going to come in that low, because the stats are still going to continue to love Patrick Cantlay. And the results love Patrick Cantlay, just not in the 2 biggest tournaments or even the 3 biggest tournaments. He was okay at the Masters, missed the cut at the Players, missed the cut at the PGA Championship as an uber popular play on DraftKings. But you just go look at the other tournaments, it's top 5 city. And that's really where he's been lingering for the past 2 years. I just don't like rooting for Patrick Cantlay, so I'm not going to use him. I bet he comes in around 10% ownership, though. He's in the good wave. Are you going to bite?
Yes. So also, the dirty little secret about that miscut the Players Championship is that was from the good side of the draw. So it was like actually way worse than that. But don't worry about that. Listen, I'll step on the rake. I'll just be the cartoon character who steps on the rake and gets smacked in the face over and over again on Patrick Cantlay. I just kind of refuse to believe that a guy who's so talented on the PGA Tour and also in big events, it's not like he only wins the 3M Open. Sorry, 3M, but like he's got playoff wins. He's won the Memorial. I mean, these are big time events, and he's got a skill set that should translate very well to major championships. I refuse to believe that when he shows up at a major, he's shaking in his boots and he can't figure his stuff out. And I just think he's on the wrong side of variance, and it is a matter of time before he starts really offering some good returns at these majors.
Never missed a cut in 5 US Open, so that's a positive for Patrick Cantlay. And we don't want to see you walking around like you're Robert Underdunked Williger and stepping on them rakes. We just maybe he won't put it in the bunker, and maybe there won't be a problem for you, and there'll be no rakes to speak of. But I just don't think I can get there on Cantlay, because I would prefer Hideki, who I have tracking at similar ownership, maybe a little bit higher, but another guy who has just really stepped up his game at US Opens. He's won a Masters, and he just sort of feels out of sight, out of mind at the moment. He was hurt for a little bit. He had the WD that everyone just submarined a ton of people. He got DQ'd at the Memorial the last time that we saw him. But on paper, I feel like Hideki sets up almost as well as Cantlay does, and I just prefer Hideki in a major championship to Cantlay.
Yeah, he is perpetually undervalued in our world. He's having a phenomenal year. He has those bizarre, injury WDs, and then that weird painted his club face DQ that I've never seen before in my entire life. It's unbelievable. But the skill sets are phenomenal, and he's essentially avoided the entirety of the live golf versus PGA Tour conversation. There's been no oxygen wasted on Hideki Matsuyama in the last couple of months, despite how well he's been playing. So I'm with you, Pat. I don't think that this necessarily is a great or a poor setup for him. I think it's a very fair setup for him, and he is likely to be very under-owned, especially as we throw a bunch more casual people into the mix this week.
Made his cut in the past 5 US Opens, including a runner-up in 2017, has gained at least 5.9 strokes on approach in each of the past 3 US Opens. And the putter, it's been a lot better over the past 5 months than it was the 5 months before. Like, he's not a train wreck on the greens anymore. That's always a positive sign when you're Hideki Matsuyama. So he has more interest for me than Patrick Cantlay does. And if I was Greg Norman and I was running this Live Tour, I'm not. He would be the guy I'd be going after right now. If you can get Japan's biggest golfer on your side, think about the international TV rights you could get out of that.
Well, that was always the argument that was around. If they're actually trying to grow the game, just buy the Asian Tour and give Hideki $500 million and just watch the next 20 years of you turning into the greatest golf organization in the world. So like that, I agree with you. Investing in the global aspect of it, especially in Asia, would be phenomenal. I'm not sure that's necessarily the game plan, but that's what I would do if I actually wanted to grow the game.
The best play on the slate, although he is in the bad weather draw, I think that Shane Lowry at $9,000 is where you want to be. He could be the first man in your lineups this week. He could be the third man in your lineups this week at $9,000. I bet him to win with the top 8 each way at 40-1, currently 35-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook. If I hadn't had the 40, I'd bet the 35. That's how confident I feel in Mr. Lowry. Although he's an Open champion, I do feel like his game translates better to the US Open, as crazy as that sounds. He's long, fairly straight off the tee. He's very good out of the thick rough. He's very good around the greens. He putts sometimes. And every time that he's won, it's been against like an elite field of the best guys around. He won the Bridgestone. He won the Open Championship. He won a Race to Dubai Middle Eastern event at the same time with all the best players on the European Tour. He doesn't win often, but he's the best player on tour this season who hasn't won. And he is just constantly lurking. He even played pretty well in Canada. Just no one really seemed to notice or care because he wasn't in that final group that everyone was paying attention to. It wasn't the last time we saw a US Open in the Northeast, but when it was at Oakmont when DJ won, I mean, he was the guy who was winning most of that US Open. I just love how his game translates. If I'm going to eat a big bar of chalk this week, it is going to be Shane Lowry.
Yeah, I'm with you. Having the best driving season of his career, having basically the second best approach season of his career, best around the green, best putting. He's doing it all. He's having the best season of his career. It's turning into results. I talked a lot about kind of creativity around the greens. You're going to be stuck in some really kind of crappy situations and some awkward ones, especially if you get stuck in the chocolate drops or bunkers that can get increasingly deep. I trust Shane Lowry around the greens. And I also, I was tracking him quite hard last week at the RBC Canadian Open. Finished 10th, and that was him. I'm pretty sure he cold topped one on 15 from the middle of the fairway, ended up taking a bogey. I mean, that's a 2-shot swing right there. We're probably talking about a different scenario if Shane Lowry ends up making a birdie on that hole. Instead, I'm with you, Pat. It's been a banner year, and this is like St. Andrews will be a good spot for him, but this is like a great setup for him.
He was third tee to green last week, 11.9 strokes gained tee to green, only behind Rory and Justin Thomas. Dude just wasn't making putts. Sometimes, as someone who bets on Collin Morikawa a lot, I know what it's like to watch your guy who you've bet on not make putts. So I'm prepared for it, but the long iron, 175 plus, it's him and Vic in this field who are the two best guys. Out of the sand, he's top 5. In bogey avoidance, he's number 2. Like, this is what you want to do at a U.S. Open. This is perfectly tailored. Hopefully the weather draw doesn't take him out, but fortunately, he's pretty good in the weather. He's also playing. Sky did an incomplete run of every hole that's played over par per round so far this season, and no player was better than Shane Lowry on holes that play over par through this PGA Tour season, and it wasn't particularly close. If you want to see the full list of that, you can check out the newsletter from Monday evening. It's all up on the Mayo Substack. Find it down in the description where you can find all the giveaway information as well, but that chart is in there, and Lowry's just been amazing on those holes.
Yeah, he's probably going to get 17 holes this week that play over par as well. So probably a pretty good stat to look at there. Yeah, you ran through the bogey avoidance, you ran through everything. It's so good, which probably means he misses the cut, but otherwise on paper it's a great play.
Yeah, 100% misses the cut when I'm like all in on a guy. Yeah, that never really turns out too well. It worked well for Rory and me last week. There's no way it happens 2 weeks in a row, right?
No way. No possible way.
Joaquin Niemann is next. I really like Niemann, but now we're getting to the point where I've told you the guys that I really like from above $9,000, and there's a bunch of guys in the 8s that I like. I like Niemann, but not as much as some of the other players. At $8,900, I think it's a fair price. I think he's a good play. He's in the good wave. Probably just not going to get there on him, though.
Yeah, I think there's 10 guys in the $8,000 range, and I think I like 9 of them. So this is kind of just we're gonna have to make some hard decisions here. The good thing about Niemann, if you're looking to invest, is he's starting to find that putter again. You know, he's gained 2 strokes putting in each of his last 4. If you remember back like 12 months ago, he was a top 10 putter, and then he kind of lost that, but we're starting to see it come back around. Obviously very talented golfer with a lot of upside, but this 8K range is incredibly packed. I like the bottom of it a bit more than I like the top of it.
And the 8K range is flat, but pretty juicy ownership because a lot of people are opting for this balanced build this week on DraftKings where, I mean, now that Rory is really getting a lot of steam following that victory and maybe ends up being the highest owned guy, you'll probably see a lineups that just go Rory and then 3 of these 8K guys, or starting with Xander or Spieth and then immediately down to Niemann. Like Niemann's going to carry ownership. He'll be somewhere between 11 and 15%, like a lot of the guys in the 8,000 range. But if we're picking nits, and I do like him at hard courses, ideally I should really like him this week, but I see Cameron Young at $8,800 right below him, and I like Cameron Young, I wouldn't say a whole lot more, but I like him a lot this week.
Well, I think what Cameron Young has done really speaks for itself. You know, he has had great finishes at a bunch of different golf courses, whether it's Torrey Pines or whether it's Harbor Town, or like, it's just, he's done it all over the place. Riviera, the game travels. What I also think is very rare and hard to find in the world of golf is a guy who mashes it off the tee like Cam Young does and gains a ton of strokes off the tee, but he's also very deft around the greens. He's got a great touch, and those two things do not go together. Those, Pat, are also the 2 things that a USGA setup generally asks for, which is kind of fun, especially when you get these greens that are only like 4,400 square feet on average. So this is, guys missed his last 2 cuts at US Opens, but this is a different golfer on a really, really good setup for his skill sets.
It is, I think that final round at Memorial when he was, it's like 16 over or something insane like that. I think it just really kind of, it felt like it I don't think it deflated him, but it deflated people's opinion of him so much that I actually think he comes in under what Niemann comes in. And I objectively 1v1, I like him better, and I think he's going to come in lower owned. So that's where I'm at with him right now. And you kind of talked about it. I talked about it with Lowry. When we speak about Rahm, he's going to be there. But when it comes to the combination of both distance and accuracy, that's where Cam Young really comes in. I'm trying to find the stat right now. He's one of 3 players to be inside the top 40 of distance and accuracy gained over the past 50 rounds. Rahm, Hovland, Cam Young. Those are the 3.
It's a great list, and it's a great list for a US Open setup. That's what you're looking for, these kind of total drivers. I mean, just look back at Brooks twice, Dustin Johnson, Gary Woodland, Jon Rahm. It's drivers. It's drivers. That's what you get here, and they're elite.
He lost 5.8 strokes on approach in the final round at Memorial. Ask anyone who rostered him at very chalk ownership at Memorial how that turned out for your DraftKings scheme. Not great, so I think that might suppress his ownership a little bit, but he had gained on approach in 9 of his previous 12 rounds before that. Like, I think he's still more like he's that player than the guy that we saw on Sunday who just, he had a case of the golf sads on the go. It's never fun to watch when that happens.
Yeah, forgive quickly. And Muirfield Village is capable of doing that to a lot of guys. Matt Fitzpatrick on the greens, guys do it on the, it's just, it'll get away from you very quickly around there.
Brooks Koepka at 5% ownership. In or out? I'm out.
Also out, but I wish I was in, but I can't get there.
Yeah, I can't pull the trigger on it either. He's in the bad wave. I mean, then maybe that's a feather to put in your cap. He just doesn't look like Brooks Koepka. Like, if we're not going to use Dustin Johnson, I don't see how we can use Brooks Koepka. Like, it's the same case for both of them. That, like, yeah, historically, they're great at U.S. Opens, obviously. And, listen, Brooks showed up last year in no form and came in second at the PGA Championship. Yeah, dude was injured for, 3 months. He'd been playing well before that. When was the last time Brooks played, well? Valspar? And it was still, kind of mediocre.
Yeah, and that's what I hate is he's kind of away from the DNA. He's not driving it nearly as well as he once did, right? That total driving idea that we talk about that gets Brooksy to a win, and then almost defends his title for a 3rd year. It's not there, and that's kind of the big missing puzzle piece. And same with DJ. So you're right. If you write off DJ, it's hard to with a straight face say no. I think Brooks is a good option.
If you want to say there's been no players better at the US Open over the past 5 years and go with Brooks, I can't begrudge that because I'm going to be sitting here on Sunday being like, man, I could have had Brooks at 5% ownership and I didn't take it. I'm an idiot. I'm prepared for that to happen, but I just can't lean into it. I'm looking at my numbers right now over the past 36 round. He is the worst player by a decent margin of anyone over $8,000.
Oh, yeah, I believe that. I mean, it's just, you mentioned it, the T12 at Valspar, the T16 at Honda, and then he popped out of nowhere to finish third at Phoenix. And that's it for a long time, basically since last year's Open Championship, when you start comparing it to what you would expect out of results from Brooks Koepka. So then you look at, missing the cut at the Masters and the Players. It's just, boy, it starts to get ugly pretty quick.
Well, I think he's going to have a good time making us all feel very stupid come Sunday because, again, that's how this works out. Billy Horschel's next. He is in the Good Wave, AM, PM. I just never really liked Billy Ho at U.S. Opens. He played well at Chambers Bay, which really has no correlation to any U.S. Open that we've seen anytime since or before. Other than that, he's been pretty mediocre, honestly, in majors over the course of his career. Is he a new guy? He's got 3 pretty big wins over the past 2 years between Memorial, the Match Play, and Wentworth. I just worry that he doesn't have that total driving game. He's got the fairways figured out. The distance, it's a little bit tougher.
Yeah, and it's been an impressive run for Billy. People aren't giving him the respect, but I will not give him the respect here by using him in any substantial way. It's just, there's a reason that for the last, 10 or 12 years, Billy Horschel has struggled in major championships. I just don't necessarily think the game that he has necessarily translates all that well, but he's going to find some really gritty wins and he's going to get a couple, every 18 months. But I would be very surprised to see him win this US Open at the Country Club.
I have him right around 8% ownership in the Millionaire Maker. Is he the high-end Kevin Kisner, like the luxury vehicle Kevin Kisner?
That's pretty good. Yeah, I don't mind that comp. Yeah, I could get behind that.
Yeah, he does everything Kiz does well. He's a bit of a grinder, a bit of a salty personality, but he has more upside than Kisner. Maybe an Open Championship is in the cards for him at some point because it does feel like that's where all the best of his game could come out.
Yeah, super grindy, right? And just doing this, he can play a lot of different shots. I think he's quite a creative golfer. So an Open Championship where he can kind of just play it out of the short stuff and get his ball up near the green and then sneak up on it. I think that's a better spot for him.
It's not so much that I don't like Billy Horschel this week at $8,600. It's just everyone that he is around is you can make a far better case for. Like if he was $7,700 where he probably should be, then I think it's a completely different story. He's one of the most popular guys on this slate. But now we get to Matthew Fitzpatrick. When I did the show with Raza and Tambo on the weekend, it was setting up pretty well that Matt Fitzpatrick was going to be the highest owned guy on the slate by a pretty wide margin. He was currently winning the Canadian Open as we were talking, but then he faltered a little bit on Saturday, fell down the board, and you really haven't heard the narrative as much this week that, in the 2013 US Amateur at the Country Club, he won. It's just weird to me that it's flipped a little bit. I thought he was going to be like 27% ownership. I don't think it's going to be that way now because you have these other guys around that same level that are just building up a lot of steam and you can't use everyone. So I'm guessing he still comes in around like 17, 18%. I don't know how I feel about him though. I still think I like the other guys better.
Yeah, the bottom of the $8,000 range is absolutely stacked. There's just a ton of guys here that's going to catch everybody's attention. I'm probably more bullish on Matt Fitzpatrick than you are. I mean, he gained 5 strokes off the tee last week, more than Rory, and that is not becoming uncommon. He gained 4.8 at the Wells Fargo, 4.6 at the Masters. He's turned into a really good driver of the golf ball. And oh, by the way, still has a very solid short game. And when things get difficult, that's kind of when Matt Fitzpatrick comes out in his best form. I don't care that 9 years ago he won here. I don't care at all. This course has gone through a lot of changes and it doesn't mean anything to me. I like Matt Fitzpatrick a lot this week because he is showing me that he's just piling up top 10s in all these great fields and doing it in a way that's super sustainable.
checks a few boxes in terms of trend line for what people have done at majors so far since the US Open got bumped behind the PGA Championship. Kept its own spot, but the PGA Championship moved to May, that the winners have primarily had like a top 15 or a top 10 finish in one of the year's two first majors. Obviously, he was in contention at the PGA Championship. He was 14th at the Masters. He has some great performances. 10th miscut, 5th second are his past 4 appearances. He's gained off the tee and on approach in all of those, at least 5 strokes putting in 3 of those 4 events. I don't know what I'm so hesitant about Matthew Fitzpatrick and why I really want to play Daniel Berger more than him, because I love Daniel. I bet Daniel Berger at 66-1. Like, I love him this week.
Okay, I bet I have a 75-1 from like 3 weeks ago on Daniel Berger, so I'm also in on Berger. But yeah, Fitzy's a good call, but Berger has seemingly shaken off those injury concerns, right? He was dealing with those with the back trouble, and now we're starting to see him get back into the mold of a golfer that you want to see from Daniel Berger, which is, pile up strokes on approach, see if you can find a hot putter, but generally have no flaws in your game. When he's going his best, he's kind of one of those guys who gains across the board, and he's been low-key very good at major championships in the last couple of years. I'm with you. I'm hoping that Berger can make a pretty deep run this week.
And it's a good setup for him. Like, last year was very long for him, obviously, because he's not a very deep driver of the ball. He's around just slightly below average, but one of the more accurate players on the PGA Tour. Very rarely misses left as well. I want to get your insights to that when you see the course, because I've been told by multiple people now who have either caddied at the course, members at the course, or have been there a lot, that if you're going to miss, you kind of want to miss on the right. It just creates a lot of an easier path for you in getting to the green, and he's number 1 in left rough avoidance of any player in this field. And if he can keep the putting going like he did, 6.6 strokes at Memorial, that's a pipe dream. But I don't need him losing 7 strokes on the green like he did at the PGA Championship. Like, 2 strokes game putting, I think we can work with that, and he could potentially win if he keeps up this iron play and hitting a bunch of fairways. And 2 of the 4 past US Opens, he's come inside the top 10. He's made the cut in each of the past 4. I think his game is just perfectly suited for a course like this. Can he win? That's a big ask. At the same time, I think that he's right in that range. He's the right skill set, the right age, that he could potentially break through here and claim his first major championship. Then you have Sam Burns, who's next. He's really the one, I think, that is detracting from Matthew Fitzpatrick at the moment, where everyone before last week was just like, Matt Fitzpatrick. And then Sam Burns just once again just pops up on the leaderboard like, man, this guy's good. He's there every single week. If you had to fade either Fitzpatrick or Burns, who would it be?
It would probably be... Well, we think Burns is going to be a little bit more popular. How do you think their ownership's going to shape up?
I think it's going to be Fitzpatrick, then Burns, then Homa and Finau, then Berger. But all within like 12% to 18%. That could shake out either way.
So I would probably, as much as I love Sam Burns, I think he's the modern prototype winner on tour. I'd probably fade him. I just love the way Fitzy gets going in these really tough conditions. But Burns is kind of like Patrick Cantlay in the same way that he's had a lot of success, not as much as Patrick on tour, but hasn't done much at major championships. Now, we did just see his best finish ever, a T20 at the PGA Championship, and I want to buy stock in like the next 4 or 5 years of Sam Burns. That's how excited I am. I will probably not be on him this week with some of the other options in the 8K that I like a bit more.
I'm leaning the same way you are on Sam Burns. However, I can see him coming back to bite me in the ass. The only one for sure that I know that I want to play of this group is Berger. So I can be sold either way, whether it be on Fitz, whether it be on Burns, or even Tony Finau. He gets the bad wave along with Sam Burns, the PM, AM. If anyone's ownership secretly gets out of control, I feel like it's going to be his. Like, we're going to look up on Thursday morning. It's like, 24% Finau. Wish I didn't play that guy.
I wouldn't be surprised at all, right? I'm not one of these Tony Finau truthers, right? I don't invest in him on a regular basis, but it is easy to see a golfer who plugged his leaks. He was hemorrhaging strokes around the green for the majority of this year so far. Now he's all of a sudden figured it out, right? He's gained strokes around the green in 5 straight. He's figured out the putter. He's gained strokes with the putter in 7 of 8. It's turning into actual results, because sometimes, Pat, we see that and it's still like, oh, well, he finally got a putting week and he finished T27. I don't care. No. Tony Finau's putting in results. Runner-up last week to Rory McIlroy, where he gained 18 strokes. 18 strokes, Pat. That would have won 94 of the last 100 PGA Tour events, but Rory sniped him by 2, finished his T4 at the Charles Schwab. I mean, like, I'm in on Finau, and those are not words that I say often.
I think that he sets up perfectly for this course. He has a good US Open track record. I just worry that he ends up, like, besides Rory, I could see him being the highest owned guy now. Without much difference between him, because it'd be one thing if he was the highest owned guy and you look 5 players north of him, 5 players south of him, and there was just no one. I would understand that. But I look just north of him, and I think you can make a very compelling case that the 3 guys above him are not way better, but better than him, or just look one guy below him and say, hey, that guy's much better too.
Yeah, this is really the most fascinating. Like, this 5 or 6 golfer range probably decides a lot of GPPs. You're either going to get a very popular guy who misses the cut or underperforms, or you're going to have one of these guys snap off and win the thing or finish second. Like, this is easily, to me, the X factor range of how all these contests are decided.
How many, when Sky sends out the most duped lineups of the week?
Yeah.
Let me throw a guess at what the most duped lineup might be, because it's always one you're like not really expecting, and it usually doesn't have like the expensive high-end guy. It's usually a balanced build. Lowry, Fitzpatrick, Berger, Burns, Finau, and Sungjae Im.
Yep. There it is. Tell Sky, call off the tweet. We don't need it anymore. We just got the most duped lineup. Yeah. And for good reason, right? They're all going to be very popular options. You can afford to get them in, and everybody's going to build it the same way.
I think, this is more of a Tambo conversation for tomorrow, because this is really what he digs into when he's building 150 lineups or entering these gigantic high-stakes GPPs. But do you think there's, you're probably going to have to fade 3 of these guys, right?
Realistically, yeah, probably. Unless you wanted to you're going to have to fade 3 of these guys.
So I think I'm good with fading Finau, because I do want to use Max Homa at $8,100. And everything you said about Burns, I think applies to Homa. I think his variance is way higher than someone like Sam Burns, where Burnsy's a bit more consistent than Homa, although the putter has really come along for Max Homa lately. And just, you look at the big-time wins that he has. I think the consistency has been there for him all season long. It just doesn't feel that way, like his Burns just storms out of nowhere and ends up winning tournaments. But long course, he can win there, whether it be Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow or at the Riv, or an easier type of course like the Fortinet, or a shorter hard course like the Wells Fargo this year at TPC Potomac. It feels like he has the all-around game. And every time recently that you think that he's going to shoot himself out of it, he just all of a sudden recovers. He's a great scrambler.
He's a great scrambler. He shows up when fields get very, very strong, when golf courses get very difficult. That's not been a detriment to Max Homa's game. What I also like is we had him on the first cut pod, and he talked a lot about trying to improve his around the green play. He was very aware that was something that was really holding him back. And you're now actually seeing some tangible gains. He's gained strokes around the green in 3 of 6, but the 3 that he lost were kind of big boys, but he's not necessarily always chipping himself out of it. You're kind of seeing the fruits of his labor kind of come in here. And when you start to see that, it's generally a very good sign of the natural progression, which, Max Homa is the poster boy for natural career progression, seemingly getting better every week and every month of his career.
I know this is more of a let's yell at Tambo thing for this, but let's try to rank these 5 guys 1 through 5. So you have Fitz, Berger, Burns, Finau, and Homa. I'm going to go Berger, Homa, Fitz, Finau, Burns.
All right, I'll go Corey Connors. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't want to get into a situation where I got yelled at. Okay, I will go. Boy, this is really hard. I will say I'll go Fitzpatrick. I will go Finau, number 2. Berger, number 3. Burns, number 4. Homa, number 5.
Okay. Or you can pivot from all of them and use a 2% Tyrrell Hatton, who royally fucked me last week at the Canadian Open.
Yeah, that he has yet to find a golf course on planet Earth that he enjoys playing.
Hey, you know what? He likes Bay Hill.
He does like Bay Hill. He actually came out of nowhere and played well at Bay Hill this year, which makes a lot of sense. He burns me as well. I think with the just sheer number of great options that are right above him, there is little chance that I get here. You start to look at the approach play, which he's now lost in 4 of 6. The ball striking is not as strong as it used to be. He's a bit more reliant on the short stuff. I worry kind of longer term about Tyrrell Hatton.
I do as well. When he rose to number 4 in the world rankings a few years back, a lot of it was predicated that he was doing all the same stuff now that he was doing then in terms of what he did well, but his long irons were immaculate at the time. Essentially from 175 plus, he was lights out. Over the past 36 rounds, he's 101st in this field, 175 to 200. He's 55th from 200. Those were his calling cards when he was at his peak. And he's still getting priced like he's still somewhat like those guys. And I buy into him like he's still one of those guys as well. And because you see the flash once every few months, and you're like, oh yeah, Hatton's really good. He can win tournaments. And then he lets you down. I don't think he's a horrible pivot play this week amongst these 5 other guys. But I think you're right. With the talent that are right above him, I think you can just pick 2 of those 5, move on your way, and you're going to have some tough choices as a fade. If I'm going to get contrarian at low ownership, I'd rather do it in the 7K range rather than the 8K range, because I think you have similar types of decisions versus chalky players, and I think that the opportunity cost is a lot lower once you get $500 below in the salary.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. The 7K range is fascinating. That's like the first real massive range that we get to. And there's a lot of things to consider here. Let's do it. Let's get to the 7s.
Bryson, yes or no?
No.
Yeah, it's
he's not playing well. And this is arguably like one of the worst USGA setups he could have asked for.
It's funny because you started to think in your mind, it's like, well, could he just bomb and gouge this place? And then you look at the green complexes and you're like, nope, no running the ball up on this one.
And the other problem is winged foot was 6-inch rough, whether you were 1 yard off the fairway or 30 yards off the fairway. There's like fescue and other crap that you're going to have to deal with if you're very wayward. And I think you need to be creative around the greens, and all his wedges are the same length. Like, no, this is, I believe, like one of the worst possible USGA setups.
Corey Connors is also $7,900. I like Connors a lot. He was 3rd here when Fitzpatrick won the US Amateur in 2013, and he just continues to play great golf. He does have, like, if he's ever going to win a major, I know he's played, he's won one PGA Tour event. I don't think he's going to win a major, but if he does, it feels like the US Open is the track for him. He's so good ball striking. The around the green has actually kind of improved for him, which is kind of shocking. Still can't putt, but these are really small greens, probably very few 3 putts on the card, and maybe, I don't know, he just has an eye for this one. Who knows? Maybe he gets lucky with his putter. We've seen Lucas Glover win a U.S. Open, and I don't think that, like, marginal skill set wise, I think that skill set wise, even Glover at his peak, I think that Connors has the same skill set, but better than Glover.
Connors is way better in the short game categories now. Around the green, his best season since he's gotten his card. Putting, by far, his best season since he's gotten his card. He's actually a good putter now. The other thing, Pat, and you mentioned this earlier, Jon Rahm lost strokes off the tee at Memorial, which ended like a 40-event streak of him gaining strokes off the tee. So the new king of gaining strokes off the tee consecutively is Corey Connors. 35 straight, 477 days. Last time he lost strokes off the tee, 2021 Genesis. So it's definitely the skill set that lends itself well to a narrow fairway, long roughed championship.
5th in bogey avoidance over the past 36 rounds as well, which is shocking for someone who typically does not putt very well.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting better. He's still 3 putts more than tour average, but it is so much better than it used to be. And when he does, the other thing is, so there's this weird stat that the PGA Tour keeps called distance from edge of fairway. It's basically like, when you miss, how bad do you miss by? He's number 1 in that category. So like when he misses, he doesn't miss by much. And I do think, unlike winged foot and unlike some other venues we've seen, missing by a little is going to be marginally better than missing by a lot. He's going to keep himself out of the really, really nasty stuff if it comes down to it.
I'm going to play Corey Connors, but then you have Mito Pereira up next, who I think rates out really well. I think that he's on the radar for a lot of people. Unfortunately, one of those people was Tim Andercust, who confused him with Minwoo Lee a month ago at the PGA Championship and then got on board with Mito. You know what happened then. But harder courses, Mito tends to play great. I think he's going to be very popular this week, and I think justifiably he should be pretty popular. But we're now into this range where I just talked about. You're going to have to make some tougher choices, and I do think that the alternative options to a lot of these 7K guys are palatable. I don't think that there's as big of a difference between them as maybe it is in the $8,000 range. So if you want to use, I was going to say Aaron Wise, who I also like, who's the same price, but he's going to garner some ownership as well. But if you want to use, let's say, I don't know, Louis Oosthuizen instead of these guys, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, Louis is kind of the fascinating one, right? I don't know if we're ready to talk about Louis, but like, you know, the major championship record, the US Open record's phenomenal, right? Runner-up, 3rd, 7th, 16th in his last 4 trips, and kind of the out of sight, out of mind. Hasn't played a ton. When he did, it's been in London for the Live Golf. People, I don't expect people to be flocking to Louis Oosthuizen. He's probably one of my favorite pivots on the board, not just in this 7K range.
And you're probably getting him around between 5 and 8% ownership. I do think that he's going to be a popular pivot play, but not enough to juice up his ownership because everyone wants to use Connors and Wise and Mito and Fleetwood and Sungjae and Keegan and Davis Riley, whoever it might be. Like, those guys are all going to be very popular this week. So there's only so much ownership to go around for all of them. So Louis is going to fall through the cracks. Between Mito and Aaron Wise, do you have a preference?
I am okay. So I'm not a Tony Finau truther. I am like kind of an Aaron Wise truther, which kind of hurts in this scenario. So I would probably lean towards Wise, who just continues to show the great putting improvements. The one thing that I have concern about Mito with, I guess, and Aaron Wise is not immune to this either, is like the closing ability and the fact that really good finish that we saw at the PGA Championship for Mito was his best putting performance ever. So I think the true ceiling is kind of a big ask. I would opt for Aaron Wise in this spot.
I'm trying to make that decision right now, and maybe I can give it another 12 hours or so and continue to talk it out. I mean, they do a lot of the same things really well. The one big difference that I was surprised about, Aaron Wise, one of those players along with Mito that plays holes that are hard to par and over par really well, like the Shane Lowrys and Rorys of the world. But the off-the-tee game, strangely enough, has relied on Mito, not Aaron Wise. And when you think of Aaron Wise, you think the bread and butter is how well he drives the ball. But it hasn't been that way basically since the Heritage. Like, he plays these shorter coastal courses really well off the tee. When you get to longer tracks, for some reason, his off-the-tee game goes kind of south.
For sure. I don't know if he's trying to muscle it out there and something goes awry, but he's still gaining, no matter how small in some of these scenarios. And I mean, 7,200 yards, Pat, for a US Open venue that's pretty short by most standards.
I agree, but I don't think it's necessarily going to feel like it plays that length with blind shots and some elevation. And I know I've brought up this point a bunch this week, but I do recall the chatter when Pebble Beach was hosting the US Open. And it's like, oh, well, it's a short course. Anyone can compete here. Then you look at the top of the leaderboard. It's like, oh, it's Shez Reavie and the 9 guys who hit the ball the farthest.
Yeah, because Pebble requires everybody to play to the same spots. There's just all these landing areas, and then everybody hits, Gary Woodland's hitting a wedge in, and, these shorter guys are hitting 6-iron or 7-iron in or something like that. So Pebble's kind of different in that way, but you're right. I think, especially with the rough that's out there and, some of these, there's kind of some elevation changes and blind shots. It's not going to play to a pure 72. I think it plays a little bit longer.
And I do think that some of the distance is hidden a little bit, a lot like it is at Riviera. Obviously, we have the elevation changes at Riviera, but you have those like weird short holes at Riviera that just like take yardage away from when you think about the average once you exclude those two. Because one of these par 3s is 131 yards. There's a par 3 that is this par 4 going to be drivable, do you think? Because it seems like it is.
I think not every day. I think they will. It'll certainly be drivable based on conditions like one day, like probably Saturday. I think they'll give you the up tees and let everybody go for it. But no, I think there's still going to be a priority on playing from the short grass. And if I remember correctly, that green complex is pretty tricky, and some guys might opt to hit a full shot into it. But I think at least one day they'll be able to take a crack at it.
Tommy Fleetwood led to the biggest screaming fight that Jeff and I have had in quite some time on Monday's show. I'm not playing Fleetwood. I'm just not doing it.
I appreciate what Tommy has done, right? He's been stout around the greens. This is the best golf that he has played in basically since the tour shut down in 2020. But I think as the week has gone on and as I've started to build more lineups and as I've started to kind of get kind of a feel for this board, he has not been making a lot of my lineups because of Corey Connors, because of, Mito Pereira and Aaron Wise, because of some guys we're going to talk about in a second. It's just, I thought if you would have asked me a couple of days ago, how much exposure would you have to Tommy Fleetwood? I probably would have thought it was a lot more than what I'm going to end up with just as I'm now making lineups in practice.
It'd be one thing if he wasn't going to be popular, and it's not like he's going to be the highest owned dude from down here. That honor belongs to Sungjae Im. But he's going to be 12, 13, 14%. If he was 5%, sure. But when I can have Louis for that ownership instead of Fleetwood, give me Louis, the guy that just performs in these big stages over and over again. And Fleetwood does have a decent US Open track record, not so decent the past 3 turns at the US Open. We just remember the good times with Tommy a lot of the time and never really the bad times with Tommy. So I will be taking a pass. Sungjae Im, Rory, Xander, probably Fitz, Finau, and then you got this guy. Give me a guess on his ownership in the $15 Millionaire Maker.
Oh boy. 23%.
I have bet him to win at 66-1, and then I found out that he is the most undercursed player of the week. A lot of people are not happy about that, myself included. You feel comfortable fading him because on paper he really does set up perfectly here. He's 15th in FedEx Cup points, if you didn't know.
And that is my currency of choice, FedEx Cup points. Yes. I am not as comfortable fading him as Rory, which sounds crazy, but I think that when you start looking at the top and the other great options, you can make a case for all those guys. There are some good guys here in the 7K range, but I think he is clearly the guy. So I would not feel comfortable fading Sungjae Im. He's just like, I get it. This is the guy. This is the ball striking guy who has been playing well, and he can get hot with the putter, and the short game's been on display. Like, this is the guy. I get it.
Just trying to figure out right now, see if I can bring this up to see if I can play the Tim Andercutt to miss the cut parlay with all of his guaranteed to be good picks. That's always a fun time. I know Paul won a lot of money on Scottie Scheffler to miss the cut at the PGA Championship when he, there was no way he couldn't win that week, and then all of a sudden he's missing cuts. So let's see here. Morikawa, Sungjae, where are you at, Sungjae? Do this in real time. Plus 162 to miss the cut, and Mito Pereira plus 137. 18-1 for those 3. 3-team parlay for those 3 guys to miss the cut. I mean, you could do worse than that, couldn't you?
I mean, 18-1 for 3 guys to miss the cut. That's pretty good.
It's not.
I mean, 18-1. That's what, Jordan Spieth to win this thing? Maybe. Nah, Spieth's longer.
Yeah, it's like Scheffler to win this thing.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, see, they just parlay it with Scottie Scheffler to win him, and boom, just multiply your money. It's like hitting 27 red on the roulette wheel. But, okay, let's talk about Keegan. Actually, no, Abe Ancer is actually the guy who's right there, who's next. I don't have very much interest in Abe Ancer.
No, I'm not a fan of Ancer, and even when he plays well statistically, it doesn't always even show up in the results. So out on Ancer.
It's really been the approach for me. His approach game has just been piss poor for like 2 months now, and you're going to need that this week. I think on paper, like, he sets up very well off the tee like Connors does, but the rest of his game has just gone to shit, so I don't want to be there with him. Keegan Bradley. I bet Keegan Bradley to win at 80-1. Who am I?
Wow. That is... Man, I'm generally the Keegan guy. He hasn't been as good on approach as I would like, but he is putting, so it's kind of weird. I think it's unlikely that he wins this tournament, but I think for DraftKings purposes, he is someone that, on paper, total driver of the ball, has putted better as of late, savvy vet who's the moment's not too big for him or anything like that. I'm like a 6.5 out of 10 in terms of excitement.
I just liked him the way that he rated out in those total driving metrics of the guys from down the list. He was probably the best of the bunch when it came to distance plus accuracy. It's really funny to go back and look at the wins that he's had in his career. He's only won 4 times on the PGA Tour over the past 12 years, and 3 of them have been against elite fields at hard courses, which is just mind-boggling. He won Bridgestone, a WGC, back when Firestone played incredibly tough, very narrow fairways there as well. He won a PGA Championship. That was pretty tough against the best guys in the world. When was the last time he won? He won the BMW Championship in the FedEx Cup playoffs. I think he won 8 under that week. Something really crazy, and it was just a very difficult course in the Northeast. He's a Northeastern guy. He might not have any course experience, but I do think that he has better local knowledge of how this rough is going to play, how the green speeds are going to run than a lot of guys. You just don't see very many golfers from the Northeast.
I forgot that he was like a New England guy. He's like a big Boston sports fan or whatever. Yeah, that's an interesting angle. I don't mind that. Listen, he is, we kind of talked about Billy Horschel being a grinder. Like, I think Keegan's a grinder too, man. I think he really works hard. And believe it or not, I've walked some holes with Keegan, and he works hard over every shot. Thursday, Friday, doesn't matter. He works very, very hard over every single shot, which is something that when you're this far down, even making it to the cut, moving up the leaderboard on the weekend, grinding out points for you is a valuable trait.
Seamus Power, I like as well. He is 7,500. Now, Keegan's going to carry double-digit ownership more than likely, between like 8 and 13%. Now we're into a range where no one is going to do that. So who are the pivots that you like down here? I like Seamus Power. I like Munoz. Davis Riley might get popular, but I do like him too.
Do you know? So Seamus Power is making his debut, Pat. The last guy to win the US Open in his first time playing it. Do you have any idea how long it's been?
I have no idea, but I don't think he's going to win. I just think he's going to play well.
No, I don't think he's going to win either. Francis Ouimet, 1913. Here. Yeah. Last guy to win the US Open in his first crack. No, I don't think he's going to win either, but I like Power as a pivot. I think that what do you think HV3 comes in at?
I don't know. Now, there's a company out there, a sports betting book. I'm not quite sure what their name is, but they sponsored Harold Varner III today. They know he's going to the Live Tour, right?
I imagine there is a clause in that contract that
then why sign it when the guy's going to be there next week?
I'll tell you what, that is the only thing that's thrown me off the scent of HV3 going to the Live Golf League. But I'm like, why would they have signed this if he is probably a week or two away from going and playing on that tour? So that's the only thing that's kind of thrown me off the scent. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure he's already got his bags packed.
Davis Riley, yes or no?
Yeah, he's the real deal. And ever since he played with Zalatoris, he stole some of his superpowers, and he hasn't finished outside the top 13 since. And he's just been rolling, and the tee to green game's sharp. He's gaining across the board. Yeah, big in on Riley.
Yeah, and on the Corn Ferry Tour, when even last year and the year before, sort of the king of tough courses on the Corn Ferry Tour, so this should really work out well for him. How about Live Tour member Taylor Gooch, who, by the numbers from his PGA Tour play, looks really good here.
Yeah, this is kind of the most fascinating one to me because one, I was shocked that he went because he doesn't fill the script of everybody else, but great ball striker, has played well enough on the PGA Tour. Again, he had a top 10 in a 48-man field in London last week. I don't know how to reconcile that, but this is a really interesting, almost like psychoanalysis. Like, is he just going to come back and play with Max Homa in practice rounds and everything's going to be all good and he's going to play well? Because if so, I think on paper it's a really good setup for him.
No ownership being attached to Taylor Gooch right now whatsoever.
Yeah, I think he's very fascinating for the mid $7,000 guys, because there's some that he's just clearly, many of these guys he's just much better than. And we've seen the winning upside. I think Gooch is a really interesting option if you can get him at low ownership, which seemingly you can.
Reminder to everyone to smash the like and play into the Pat Mayo Experience DraftKings Listeners League. The link is available down in the description, as is the link to the free newsletter. Go check that out, and you can find all the myriad giveaways. This week alone, I'm giving out close to like $1,500, some of it in cold hard cash, some in Justin Herbert rookie cards, some in DK tickets. You can find all of the information, how to get your ballots, down in the description with that free newsletter, or you can just rate and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. No matter where in the world you are, we need your support on this one. Winners announced on Wednesday's show, so you got so much more time to go do this if you're listening before that live show at noon Eastern time. Russell Henley. I'm not using him, but I can see why everyone wants to.
So do I, but I would honestly just I've been very successful using Russell Henley in showdown situations and not in tournament long situations because the inevitable kind of weekend come back to earth thing happens. So Russell Henley will get a lot of round one matchups and first round leader and showdown stuff, but I will not commit to Russell Henley for four straight rounds.
I'm going to bet Seb Straka, first round leader. He's in the good AM wave. I kind of like him at $7,200 as well. He's played tougher courses pretty well so far this year. Almost like Seamus Power as well, where he plays the Masters, he plays the PGA Championship, and finishes pretty well in them. And Straka, he'll fight for your money is the one thing that I've learned about him. Even if he's outside the cut line, he's going to rally for you and really make a push to get to the cut line.
What I like about him, he's just a big, strong guy. And when you start looking at extracting yourself from this rough, I mean, you need club head speed, right? That's how this works. And he is one of the better guys in this range of just being able to whip his ball out of the thick stuff. All
right. I think we're good of going through name. Actually, you know what? Patrick Reed. Let's do it. I kind of like Patrick Reed here.
I kind of love Patrick Reed here. So there's again, the bizarro Bryson path to success, where Bryson wins at Winged Foot because everyone's playing from the rough and Bryson's the best out of the rough. If everyone's playing from greenside at the country club, that's really, really good for Patrick Reed. And if you go back and run the numbers for, I don't know, the last couple of years on small greens, 5,000 square feet on average or smaller, Patrick Reed's name is like top 6. And he's one of the few guys that does it not via hitting every green, right? Morikawa just hits every green. Justin Thomas just hits every green. Patrick Reed does it with the short game stuff. And I think that is going to be such a huge emphasis this week. And we know, Pat, nobody would be more villainous than Patrick Reed coming back, winning the US Open and darting off to Portland.
And it's not like he was going to be popular anyway. Like we're talking about like 3% owned Patrick Reed here.
I'm in.
I
actually had already, I bet him. I have like 125 to 1 ticket on Patrick Reed from a couple of weeks ago. I was excited about his chances at St. George's, kind of another place with small greens and the ability to get up and down being pretty important. But this is an even better setup for him.
I had bet him at St. George's before he WD'd. So I think you and I are reading far too many of the same tea leaves this week. I don't know how I feel about that. I like being on the same side of you. Don't get me wrong. I think you're a very smart guy. That's why I have you on. But the fact that I agree with you, that's bad news for you.
It's never good when like you get the consensus. It's like, well, we know how this is going to go, right? It's just like golf is so bizarre and a million things are going to happen. So we'll be right or we'll be wrong together. That's okay.
Okay, rest of the 7Ks, because there's still like 30 people down here in the 7Ks. The ones that I have starred currently, I don't know whether I'm in or out on, are Woodland, Rogers, Noren, and List. I like those guys. Did I miss Siwoo? Is Siwoo even cheaper? Where's he at?
7,000.
7,000. I like Siwoo. Shocker.
Yeah, shocker to find Siwoo and Luke List on the short list, but they're I like those guys too. I'll tell you what, two more. Brian Harman getting a great US Open setup. He finished runner-up at Erin Hills or whatever, and he never should have. But this is a better spot for him. And you want to talk about villains coming back from live, Kevin Na has been unbelievable on approach play, still has the great short game. As if he does not lose 4 strokes with the driver, if he loses like 1.5, I think he could be a very noisy option later in the week.
None of these guys will carry ownership. If you're looking for the ownership guy down here, it's Justin Rose following his performance at the Canadian Open. I feel like there's no easier fade on the board than Justin Rose at 12% at $7,100 when literally everyone around him is 1%.
Yes, and that bizarre 60 that he shot with 3 eagles and 3 bogeys does not get me excited whatsoever.
$6,000 players. I have some guys that I like here that I'll use in a lot of Scheffler builds. I don't know if I'd want to build a balance. And maybe that's the way to do it. If you want to have like the 5-man balance build lineup and you do want to risk it, I got some names for you down here. And I think I'm going to try to rank them for you in the $6,000 range. The 2 I like the best, I think, are my guy, Ariel, who you probably got to see a lot of in Vegas when he played really well at the Shriners. And he has the good draw, $6,400. In his past 3 starts on the Korn Ferry Tour, it's a win, a 5th, and a 34th, mashes the ball off the tee. I think that he is a worthy gamble at $6,400. Do I think he's going to make the cut? It's probably like 50-50. But either way, I think that's good for a $6,400 player who can play well in these conditions. Hits it big off the tee. Taylor Montgomery, flea market. Another one who absolutely mashes off the tee. 2nd in par 4 scoring average on the Korn Ferry Tour this year. 2nd in overall scoring average on the Korn Ferry Tour, even higher up in the driving distance ranks than Harry Hollis, also $6,400. I think if you want to go down and you want to take a chance, we've seen Korn Ferry guys do well at the US Open. I think those are the 2 that you want to go after.
Harry Hall plays out of Summerlin, so I see him over there a lot, and he mashes it. You are right, but I always it always looks impressive when those guys hit it, so it's hard to say like how that compares to everybody else. But yes, very, very good golfer. I got 2 for you, Pat, here. How about Adri Arnis?
He's on my list. I got you there.
All right. Plays on the DP World Tours, coming off a 16th place finish, made the cut and finished 30th at the PGA Championship. He won 4 starts ago, right? I like it when guys have a little bit of major championship history out there. You know, it's not going to be their first time showing up and playing a major. Yannick Paul is the other one. Ooh. Remember Outlaw Tour hero Yannick and Jeremy Paul, the twins? Yannick's in this field.
Isn't he a professional boxer?
I thought he was a professional golfer, Pat.
So he's not one of the Paul brothers that like one of them went into boxing, one of them went into golf?
The third Paul brother
yeah.
who went into golf? I don't think so. No, his twins Jeremy's from like Denmark or Germany.
Well, maybe that's like a bit that Logan and Jake do, that they're Yannick Paul from Germany, you know?
You know what?
I think that'd be a good bit.
More sense. I've never seen this guy in person. I've only ever just seen his results in a spreadsheet or on a website. So it is possible that it is Logan or Jake Paul in disguise. But whether it is or not, I love the career progression, right? This guy is grinding Outlaw Tour and moves up the ranks. Then he's grinding Challenge Tour, moves up the ranks. Now he's on the DP World Tour. He's got 4 top 20s in his last 6 starts, a runner-up finish a couple of weeks ago, top 20 at the Porsche European Open. It's impressive to see these guys move up the ranks of professional golf with how hard it is now.
So I like you. I'm probably out on the lost Paul brother, but I do like, how are we pronouncing his last name? Arnaus?
I thought it was Arnis, but like I am 0% confident.
Yeah, well, I heard Andy was telling me about it last night, and I was like, that's not how I pronounce it, but he's probably more right than I am. So double A, Arn Anderson. We got one of the 4 horsemen out here. We can use him. I do like him. And I like him along with, he's a bit more expensive than Montgomery and Hall, but I think I'm okay with that if you want to mix and match some of these guys in the $6,000 range. I think you can get tricky. You can play a Magic Beans final guy with either Hughes or Lucas Herbert. Kitayama has the length. Nick Hardy has the length. He's only $6,200. Played really well at the Canadian Open, was coming back from injury, and even, was it 2 weeks ago, was 2nd on the Korn Ferry Tour. So I think he won his qualification section at the US Open as well. He's $6,200. I will have a little bit of him. And the last guy is Sam Horsfield. You know, another live guy. Actually played really well on the live tour. I believe he was 5th place, hits it a ton off the tee. And he was someone that everyone really liked at the PGA Championship. Had a bad PGA Championship coming over the DP World Tour. I think for his price point that it's a pretty good play.
Yeah, what I love about this range is all these guys that legit earned their way in and qualified in. 66 of them in the field this week. The last guy that I'll throw out there is one of the few like PGA Tour regulars that we have down here, which is Beau Hossler. He's $6,400. He was 17th at the Byron Nelson, made the cut at the PGA Championship, 21st at the Charles Schwab, 32nd at the Memorial. So he's got 4 straight decent starts coming into this, can provide a little bit of salary cap relief if you want to go that route. And he's going to have to do it. He's going to have to do it, Pat, with the short game.
Agreed. He actually just missed that split. I looked at players because this was the Luke List stat that I have, that there was 4 players in the field who ranked inside the top 20. I believe it was top 20 or top 25 of both driving distance and strokes gained around the green over the past 75 rounds. It was Rory, Scheffler, List, someone else, and then just on the outside was Beau Hossler. He hits it a mile, and he's very good around the greens. That could be a very good recipe this week. I agree with you.
Yeah, two good skill sets to have at this setup, and at $6,400, you're not asking for much.
Rick, we kept it under 90 minutes. You're a hero, sir.
Wow. First time ever. Is that a new record?
I think so. I think this is where we're coming in and around. I think there's a good bit. We talked about basically everyone we want to talk about, I think.
If we didn't talk about the guy that people wanted to hear about, like, sorry, like what we talk about 90 different golfers in this field, that's pretty good.
Yeah, tough shit out there, people. If we didn't talk about Gary Woodland enough for you. I like Gary this week, but, we don't need to break him down. He's won a US Open in the past. Rick Gehman, you will be at the course on Wednesday, so what sort of special content can we expect from you?
Yeah, so I'm there with CBS, so I'll be on, they'll do streaming stuff, CBS Sports HQ, probably like 4 times a day, and then we'll be recording some podcasts and stuff out of there as well. So the first time we're kind of getting the crew together here in quite some time, and I'm just looking forward to it, Pat. It's exciting time for golf, and we're going to an awesome historic venue. I'm excited to get back out there on the road.
At Rick Run Good on Twitter, rickrungood.com, some of the best tools on the planet up there. Highly recommend that you go over in the Rick Run Good YouTube channel and all of the myriad podcasts that you can find Rick on, including CBS Sports HQ and the First Cut podcast, along with 300 Yards to Unknown. So Rick is probably the best in the biz right now. I'm so proud of you, buddy. And I look forward to seeing your content from the course this week. It's so exciting. I'm excited for you.
Thank you, Pat. I really seriously appreciate that. And you are always so helpful in getting everybody rocking and rolling in this industry and lifting everybody up. And yeah, it's fun when stuff like this works out, because I know there's a lot of people who want to be going to the event and want to be doing this for a living. And I'm lucky enough to be able to do it. And it's crazy every day, but I appreciate you in a big way.
Well, now the move is anyone who gets close to you, step on their throat so they can't take your job.
I'll work on that. I'm not sure I'm as good at that as you'd like me to be.
Well, just don't wear the soft spikes. Wear like the metal spikes to the course, and it'll make things a lot easier once you get the pressure on that neck. Trust me on that one. Either way, Rick Run Good on Twitter and YouTube and the website.com. You can follow me at the PME. Sub to the newsletter to find all of the giveaway info for the US Open. There is a ton, like I said, almost $1,500 worth of free giveaways that you can get your hands on. Many different ways to get the ballots into the draw. There's 101 that you can do. You can find that only in the newsletter, so go subscribe to it or just read it, or whatever. And then the big one is rate and review and subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast. Leave those reviews because those will help push us up to the very top of the list. We're almost there in the States, almost there in Canada, and a lot of different countries, so that extra push over the finish line will only help. Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!